Okay, then I'm gonna leave the intro to you.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Wano Report, episode 32. As you can hear, my audio is much crisper than last week's Wano Report, unless it gets ruined in post-production. So, I have no idea. Maybe you're listening to some terrible audio right now. I don't know.
Maybe I'm doing it on purpose.
Your
audio is actually
like
every
fraud.
time it's perfect, and I'm just like down tuning it to make myself seem better.
Yeah, last week I gave Ohara perfectly usable audio takes, and he decided to make me look bad by replacing it with a phone quality filter or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I think that is something like that, right?
All right, with me today is Ohara as usual, and yeah, that's about it. Just us.
That's it. Same as always. Yeah. How you doing? Anything happened to you in the last week?
Oh, I put out a video. At least One Piece related. That's what happened. I put out a video. It was a very shorter, simple. It wasn't really like it was just a discussion video. But I was happy to put out a video again. And yeah, I'm trying to get back to putting out videos more regularly soon.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, I actually really liked that video. And unlike you, I was unsurprised that it did pretty well. So if you haven't seen that yet, make sure to check it out. I guess I'll just put a link to that in the description below. Also to our Twitter accounts, if you're not following us on Twitter. Thank you for all your questions again for this podcast. And any other intro we need? Any housekeeping?
No. Well, how about you? You're putting out some. I don't know if you want to announce anything. Never mind.
Oh, right. Yeah, no,
you
sure.
Can edit it out, right?
It's not a secret.
Okay.
But yeah, so since I'm now done with my thesis, I do have more time for my channel again, luckily. So in case you did notice, I did not put out any major videos, or not a lot of major videos over the last half year, actually. If you're newer to the channel, then you probably will not have noticed, and you'll probably hear because of this podcast or because of my chapter reviews. But actually, I do want to focus my channel, as Morj does as well, on these major analysis videos and storytelling videos, world building, and so on and so forth. And so, starting next week, I will try to upload these in a very consistent manner. So you can be looking forward to that, I guess. Hopefully.
All right.
Nice. Let's get right into the chapter then, I guess. I'm blushing, so... Too much self-plug.
Oh.
Well, so what was your general thought on this chapter?
Oh, dude, I really like this chapter. I am excited. How do I say this? I'm obviously excited for. I've been excited for like the Onigashima raid and everything like that. But now that we're actually here and like getting into it and like entering into Kaido's lair and everything like that, it's kind of like a renewed excitement because now it's actually happening. So for a long time it's like, yeah, that's gonna happen, it'll be cool when it happens. But now that it's actually happening, it's like, man, the next 20, 30, 40, I don't know how long this is gonna go. This next stretch of chapters is gonna be really, really cool. And basically now the ball's gonna start rolling. So yeah, basically this chapter for me was kind of the first chapter that I was like, man, it's really happening at this point. This raid that we've been working towards since, I don't know, what Wano's been going on how long now? Probably a year, 2 years?
Something like that.
Maybe 2 years.
For sure.
Yeah, so this is the first
probably
big event.
Probably even longer, no?
Yeah, that we've been waiting for such a long time, and now it's finally getting going, and just, obviously opening up into seeing Onigashima from the inside was amazing. I think that was one of the coolest double-page spreads Oda's done in few weeks. Not few weeks, you know what I mean, like several chapters or so.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the coolest images. Yeah. So that was really cool. I really liked Kinemon's ability being used the way it's being used because it's always been an ability that had it had potential.
It's like he basically pulled out the maximum output he could get from his devil fruit for this situation, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with you there.
And it works for this. Like it works pretty well. I don't know how familiar people
Right.
the
How well
main
they know each other?
crews. Huh?
Okay. You mean like how well the Beast Pirates know each other? You mean?
Yeah, basically that. Like how well known the faces and such of the Straw Hat crew and everything like that are among them.
Oh, okay. You mean
So
from that perspective?
yeah, so it depends. Like, if does everybody get a free pass for the moment, or is it mainly the foot soldiers and stuff like that? But clearly, like a lot of them are going to be able to get in a little undetected for at least the immediate future. So I like that ability of Kinemon being put to use a lot. And the Flying Six, we want to talk about that a little down the road. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on
sure.
the chapter?
We can talk about that in depth a little bit later on. I do agree with you with a lot of points here. I think it was really an excellent chapter, and it was really, I guess, what made it really enjoyable for most people in the community. Even people who usually are very critical of the
Oh,
chapter. I've
who
seen.
are you talking about?
I don't know, not you, but
Okay,
but yeah, there's
I
like
know.
a.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone seemed really happy with the chapter, and I think the reason for that is that this chapter, there wasn't too much stuff in there that was very open for interpretation or very ambiguous, very, I guess, you know I felt it was a very kind of straightforward chapter
Hmm.
that just introduced a lot of very cool stuff. It looked very nice, and I feel like that made it a really great One Piece chapter for everyone.
Hmm.
um I personally was very surprised about the layout of Onigashima. So I was personally expecting something more of this, wasteland, like thundery, kind of nothing going on with the skull on it. So I was kind of like thinking about this kind of plane where like two armies would collide. I actually never really expected them to actually go inside the skull. But
That's
now
interesting.
seeing
Yeah.
yeah, now seeing that it's this Japanese styled, almost like dreamy temple-y kind of setting, I think this is so much cooler. Because while it would be really nice, like in Marineford, right, seeing two armies clash on a plane, kind of, it would give this chaotic and like war type of feeling, which I think was very characteristic and intentional at Marineford. But since now we're in a situation where actually not only Luffy is there, but the entire crew, and we want to see everyone fight, and we don't want, to like switch on the same battlefield between different scenes. I think it's the perfect setting to have to split up and have individual, like small groups fighting it out in different corners of this island, which I think is a really nice, geographical almost layout for this battle.
That's a good point because you are right in that. Like, I think actually probably most people, myself included, like, I did think that like Onigashima, like, I thought it's skull in the center, and then as you said, like, it's gonna be a large ring of land basically around that, and then most of the fighting's gonna happen around there. And even when like Law and such were explaining, how they're gonna get in through the back, through the whatever, it sounded like there's gonna be a lot of fighting mainly around the 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 land area of it, I guess. I don't really know how to say it. But now that it looks more like when we did get that image of Onigashima, and first of all, it looks like a really I think you described it well, like a dark sort of fantasy Japanese temple type area. It's very messy in a way, like not in a bad way, in a good way, I guess. Like it's like a treasure trove in a sense. There's like a lot of stuff there, but it feels more like an infiltration sort of, like obviously they're going to break out into battle and everything like that, but it does give more of an infiltration sort of vibe, like they're going deeper and deeper into the belly of the beast or whatever. So that also, I think this, for me, now that I'm thinking more about the layout, it does sort of, it doesn't confirm, but it makes me a lot more certain that this is not the final battle. You know what I mean? Because it just doesn't seem, like, this setting, yeah, this feels like a attack mission, a raid that is not going to work out cleanly because it's just not a battlefield sort of setting. Also, quick side note, can you hear my stomach? Because I'm super hungry, I haven't had breakfast yet. Can you hear it through the mic?
I couldn't hear it, but I will pay attention from now
Oh,
on.
great. Alright, so viewers just know.
If you want to get something to eat first, but I think maybe
No, I'm
after
good.
the
Let's just
podcast might
keep
be
the
better. It's
I
just
can
ASM,
wait.
Yeah, we can convert this to an ASMR channel and
Yes.
just do sandwich eating.
Yeah.
The
Oh
sandwich
shoot, I have
report.
to buy groceries and stuff too. I actually don't have food on me right now.
Same. I feel ya.
Great. Alright,
I'm
whatever.
also too lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and I feel one additional factor, we talked about this last time already, that in general it doesn't feel, and that's basically what your video is about, right? It doesn't feel like this big threat and this kind of climax is coming. It feels so positive, and even like while Onigashima has the skull and it has like these demon statues and so on and so forth, I almost got like a positive kind of vibe from it because it felt kind of cool. It felt kind of mythical.
Yeah.
So yeah, and at some point during the chapter, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me it was almost like, and obviously that is on purpose, but like this is going way too smoothly right now.
Yeah. Going very smoothly. Very, very smoothly.
Like there's 3 guards at the door. Usopp takes them out. Then obviously the couple of guards the Straw Hats took out immediately. And then Kanjuro, for some reason, appears to not have relayed this message yet. And like it might well be that like Kaido is actually preparing for battle, or Orochi's actually preparing for battle, and Oda is just misleading us. But the picture, at least he's painting in the last 2 chapters, is that they're just having this party and no one's aware that the army's actually infiltrating.
I think, okay, so one thing that I've thought, so it's 2 ways right now, right? So one, either they have all the information, Oda is kind of like about to pull the rug out from underneath us and show that they're completely prepared and everything like that, and they're just going to get wrecked. 2 is that they really are this lax and really are this carefree and stuff like that, because there's literally nothing that the Alliance or whatever could do to mess with them. You know what I mean? Like, if they have all of their forces there and stuff, like, from their perspective, sorry, it might literally be like ants attacking like a giant or something like that. Because even if you had the entire Marine forces assembled right now, this would still be a tough battle, probably, right? So it's possible that from Kaido and Big Mom's perspective, it literally doesn't matter everything that they... Because the people who tried... Orochi was the one who, when he heard their plans, he was like, okay, I'm going to mess with their plans and stuff like that. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to destroy the bridges, destroy the ships and stuff. I wonder if Kaido even cares. Like, I wonder if, like if Kaido one-shotted the strongest person in the Alliance earlier in the arc, it's possible that, like... okay, no matter what, they're going to get a rude awakening, right? So either the awakening is that, like, they had it all planned and they're going to get crushed. Like, they had a trap planned and they're going to get crushed.
Or they actually had the momentum on their side, but they still get...
Yeah, or they actually, like, everything worked out perfectly, but it didn't matter because they just...
That would be actually, I think, you know, now that I think about it, because I've been for the longest time, now I've been kind of expecting Oda, like you said, at some point to pull out the rug under our feet and be like, oh, you know, either, you know, it was a trap all along, or someone fucks up and they get discovered. But now that you phrase it like this, I feel like the harshest thing he could actually do is make it simply work out and they nonetheless fail immediately.
Yeah, they literally don't.
That would
like,
be
everything
pretty harsh.
goes according to plan.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But
yeah.
There's a lot of ways that I can... But, like, you're right that it does feel very... I think Oda set it up, like, pretty perfectly right now. In that, like, no matter... Like, tonally, right? Because it does feel... Like, I get, like, a lot of people, I think most people, at least from stuff that I still see, are talking about this is, like, the big the final battle. They're talking about what are the matchups going to be, stuff like that. So I think most people still, like, everything Oda has done has, like, properly set it up to still feel like, to, I think, most readers that this is the climax of the arc. But then at the same time, like, leave enough of, like, a weird, like, make it positive, like, strangely positive enough that, like, you can kind of feel that something really bad is coming, and set it up such that it also isn't serious enough to be the final climax of the arc. So, like, I don't know, and we're talking as though this is definitely guaranteed for failure and stuff, but, like, at the very least, something really, really negative is about to happen to the group, I think. I think they're going to have one more big success before they get through the gates or something, like maybe a fight or something like that. and then things are gonna go really haywire. Personally,
downhill. Yeah. Man, there's actually. I was also surprised because the chapter didn't feel that long, especially with the double spread.
it did not.
But it's still. I feel like there was so much going on, so much to talk about. One thing before we maybe get a bit more into the entire fighting thing. What I thought was really interesting, because I mean the skull is something that's, in my opinion, surprisingly not discussed as often on Onigashima as I would think it would be in the One Piece community, because it is suggested that this was this enormous creature where there's an entire castle inside, inside the skull.
Dude, that makes oars look so tiny, right?
It
like
does.
Whatever it is.
So there's that, and then there's this enormous sword that almost looked like it might belong to that creature. So what's your thought on that? Do you feel like that skull is just a funnily shaped mountain kind of, or do you think that's actually like a creature that, like, I think one of the theories is that Wano got pulled together from different countries and so on and so forth. Like, do you feel like there's something behind that?
Oh, you know what? Wait, hold on. No, okay, so Oars is called the continent puller, right? But we know Oars is nowhere near as big as literally his skull being an island or whatever, pretty much. Not an island, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much, almost, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is huge. To me, it's one of those things that I haven't thought as much about, just because, to me, I'm treating it kind of as like, oh, I feel like this might just be Oda putting in like interesting stuff that you can read into and kind of like imagine that there's more lore around this, like, oh, maybe this is an ancestor of Oars or something like that, or oh, maybe this is something along, like, you can kind of imagine that, like, oh, it seems like there's a race of like super giants or something like that, and he might not actually end up going into that because we haven't had as much mention of it. But now that you reminded me of the Wano looks like it's been pulled together or something like that, that does seem to fit what something of this thing, like, it died so close to Wano, maybe it did pull together the parts of Wano and then like died right there, and then its skull remained as an island or something like that. Like, there's all sorts of possibilities. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I would, obviously everyone who's into fantasy always loves the idea of, you know, giant monsters lurking somewhere and like these things being hinted at. It actually reminded me a bit, I don't know how much if you actually ever got a bit into Black Clover.
Okay, I've read the first chapter of Black Clover.
Right, so basically, I'm not up to date, but basically there's also this, in this village where they live, there's also this enormous skull. It's kind of like a bit reminiscent of that, in my opinion.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually don't know what to think about it. I think it would be cool, and I hope we're getting an explanation for it at some point. I would just like to hear if there's something like this. But yeah, I think it's just one of these nice. It's not typical Oda. It's just typical fantasy trope, right? Like putting something like quote unquote legendary like this, like, oh, is it real? Is it not real? Into the story, which I think always makes things very interesting and like allows people to speculate a lot about lore and world building. It's like what George R. R. Martin did so well in his stories, you know, like hinting at certain magical elements in his stories, but never getting into it too much, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it does add. I'll say one thing, at least with One Piece, it does feel like Oda does, at least for most of these sort of magical things that he drops in, or like lore based or like whatever, like mystery type things he drops in. I think that he does try and bring the, like, for example, the moon people that NL saw in Skype and stuff, right? Or the moon people that NL saw on the moon, right? Like the carvings. That's what I'm talking about, right? That stuff that I think we do expect is going to play a role in the story. Like, I think the only thing that I wouldn't expect to play into the story that Oda's introduced is the monster from the Florian Triangle. You know what I mean? The thing that, because I think that was just Oda playing with the horror trope of like, you know, there's still something out there or something like that. But now that like we're seeing so much about the skull stuff, and like so many characters are popping up that have these horns and stuff, I think at least we're gonna learn more about this race, right? Because it is a race. It's got to be a race of like Onis or something like that have these horns.
No, yeah, I do agree. In general, this entire, I mean, with Kaido still, I'm also still super curious. What's the deal with him? Like if he's just part of the special race, is he like the only one in the world? Has he been created? Is he actually a dragon? Like all these things. It's really really interesting. Another thing I just remembered about Onigashima that I thought was a little bit weird now in retrospect, because arriving at Onigashima, I feel what also made it feel so off for me is that we had like this spring theme, right? There was like a sakura tree in the top left and like waterfalls and everything. It gave like this spring, almost summery, like early summery kind of vibe. And thinking back, whenever we had seen Onigashima before in the manga or in the anime, it was always a winter island, as far as I remember.
Dude, and even going into entering Onigashima wasn't. Am I seeing? Let me pull up the thing again. The terrible Imgur scans that I had to look at. But I swear that this is the official. I swear that we were sailing through glaciers or something those
really?
glaciers or cliffs, or do you know what I'm talking about? Like as they're entering the entrance.
I thought it was just mountains, but I might be wrong. So
maybe because in my head Onigashima has been winter, like you said.
Because that's what we always saw, like the snowstorm, and it basically always it was like suggested that Kaido's just sitting inside this mountain in like a cave or something.
Yeah, they said it's a winter island. Oh no, this is snow, right? So as they're sailing through, they're not glaciers. I think they're cliffs, but this does seem to be snow that's falling, and you can see snow on the cliffs and stuff like that. So
okay,
it's keeping that here at least. But then, like you said, why is it that? Yeah, when they get in,
there's the sakura tree right at the color spread, like in the double spread. If you check it out, it does look like there's like a sakura tree and everything, and it looks, I don't know, it has like this early summer vibe almost for me.
It definitely does. Yeah, that's really interesting. Like the snow and stuff stops when they're in the actual sort of layer of it. Really
which is interesting if that's just kind of like a visual choice or a design choice Oda made, or if there's actually more to that. Wait, where's the snow? Oh, there's actually snow falling. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's snow falling.
So there's snow falling, and they get into the harbor, and it basically stops snowing, right?
Yeah. That might just be a visual. I don't know, but it's not snowing at any point afterwards that they're in the actual lair.
And you see, like in top left, where they sail into the harbor, there's like the flower petals and everything, and you have the lampions and everything. No snow.
Yeah.
This is actually really weird. Now that I think about it.
I don't really know what to make of it. I have no idea.
Yeah. But in general, it just looks so fantastic. Like, the houses and the like lampions going into the skull. It looks like the eyes are basically lit out because the like part of the fortress is inside.
Yeah.
And like when you
closer now.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it obviously when I read the chapter, but like I'm really taking a look. This is like one of the coolest images that Oda's made.
Right, and there's so much detail in there. It's crazy.
And the thing is, it doesn't look as big until you see how small the ships are. Because, like, to me, it was like, damn, this place is, a lot of assorted stuff. But then it was only when I saw the ships entering that I realized, like, how actually huge everything. Like, even the small fox statues are actually huge fox statues and stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then when you go further down, and you actually see Queen, like, doing his singing and like the DJing stuff Apu does. I wonder, is this inside the skull, or is it at the it must be inside, right?
Oh yeah,
like this entire. That's like crazy. This is wild.
Got to be inside the skull.
Just like size wise. And by the way, I mean Queen. I know there's some people who are getting annoyed by him, but I personally,
I like Queen awesome. A lot. I think Queen's great. Queen's one of the most fun villain henchman types that we've had, basically, like top henchman characters that we've had. I think Queen's definitely going to be one of the more memorable, one of the more memorable henchman type characters and stuff down the line.
Yeah, no, 100%. What do you think? Oh, sorry.
No, like I'm just saying, like we haven't even gotten to Queen's fights and stuff like that, but already like others, like I expect Queen to fight like Sanji, for example. So I think Queen's already like made more of an impact than like Jayabura, not Mr. 2, Because Mr. Two, that's separate. That's his own. Like Mr. Two has his own significance in the story and stuff. But like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like Jayabura, Absalom, those guys. Like Queen's already, yeah, it stands out in my mind a lot more than King, obviously, because we haven't seen King much.
To be fair, 100%. I do agree that would make a lot of sense. But I also feel there are so many matchups that would be really nice. It's kind of hard to say who will end up fighting who, I feel.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm jumping the gun with Queen versus Sanji, but
no, I mean, I would like to
Queen
see that, and I think it would be fitting. But you know what I mean? Like, there's so many characters out there, so many possible matchups.
I will say then, as the character that I believe Sanji will fight, I think Queen has already made a pretty big impression. I'm a big fan.
I agree. Same for me. What do you think about Big Mom? So what I think is weird that is we kind of haven't seen her yet. And then I thought it was interesting that Queen actually mentions Big Mom's crew.
Yeah, they're already here, which is pretty cool.
But we're not seeing them, right? Which is so weird.
I think, so I don't know. Okay, it's possible that I think, there's a couple different things, right? So either more of Big Mom's kids have come over from Whole Cake Island, which I don't think is likely, because then like that whole island is basically abandoned. And that's one possibility, that he's saving the introduction for that, like kind of to reveal that more of Big Mom's kids have arrived. Oh. Which again, don't think it's likely personally, just because, I don't think they would just leave Whole Cake Island completely abandoned. The second thing being, I think it's possible that Oda's just saving for like a more, he's not going to run through characters right now that we've already seen, like in this roll call, sort of. So I think like the numbers will get their own introduction. So he wanted to, like, the waiters, gifters, etc. We got, but I don't think we're going to get Big Mom's kids and like King and Jack and stuff for a little bit, until like the I don't know, we get a little further into it. So I think we'll get the Flying Six here, maybe the numbers in a little bit too, and yeah.
No, yeah, I think I can kind of agree with that. Maybe I feel like maybe they're gonna be introduced next chapter, because it does kind of feel like, the last couple of chapters was basically introducing the Alliance, all the forces coming together, and now it feels like Oda kind of is starting to flip that, and it's like, okay, who's actually on the other side? And then, Queen listing everyone who's there, Big Mom coming in with her crew. So that's going to be really, really interesting for sure. I guess. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, I'll just say to not to add one more thing. Basically, this is another reason why I don't think this is the end of the arc. As if I need to keep adding reasons.
No,
you guys already know how I feel.
We definitely need more reasons.
Okay, but I'll say this too. We're now getting basically the roll call, the rundown of who all the bad guys are of the arc, basically. That doesn't happen, like Oda is usually almost always going to do that earlier in the arc. You know what I mean? Like anything you can think of, like it's not like, no, that's not true. CP9, I guess we only got to see the remaining members of CP9 once we got to the Enies lobby. All right. Never mind, I was wrong. I'll say that for a lot of other arcs, though, like Alabasta, we saw the Baroque Works agents well before the final battle. Like, Oda likes to introduce, I think, when he can.
Right,
he likes to introduce,
for example, also, yeah.
Yeah, he likes to introduce the lineup of villains beforehand. Like, Thriller Bark, he showed us the main four of Thriller Bark. Skypiea, he showed us the priests and stuff before like the game started. Dressrosa, we got everybody early on in the arc, like the rundown. Alabasta. But CP9 is an exception, so yeah. And I guess Whole Cake Island, too. We saw most of the Whole Cake Island villains towards the very end. So, never mind. Right. Ignore what I just said. But
they were all, weren't they mostly there during the... Okay, this is literally me not memorizing it properly, maybe, but I do think Smoothie and Paris and so on, they were at the wedding, right?
Yeah, they were at the wedding.
So and the wedding was like the first, similar like now, right? It was like the middle kind of...
Yeah, you're right.
Action taking place, but then the second half of the arc basically changing completely.
Just way long. Second half of the arc was when I'll still remember the second half basically being like that's what made or broke Whole Cake Island for like a lot of like I think because even myself, like when the second half, I don't weekly reader at that time.
Yeah.
So like when that stuff started happening, like post cake, like post, it seemed like the arc ended with the chateau and stuff like that. And then once that like chasing in the woods and stuff started, that's when I think a lot of people, like I myself included, I wasn't liking it until the Luffy Katakuri stuff happened. Like until Luffy took Katakuri in the mirror, and then I was like, okay, never mind, let's stay here a while longer. So anyway,
it was just interesting because I felt at that time, because it already felt like you said with the chateau, it felt like the arc was about to end. Not knowing that we were just at midpoint
no.
in the arc, actually, I feel like everyone was always anticipating, oh, now it's going to be over soon. Then, of course, during the Katakuri Luffy fight, I guess people were like, oh, okay, this is probably going to take at least another 5 to 10 chapters. But then it went on and on and on.
That was literally the hardest fight Luffy's ever had.
Yeah. It was so interesting following that, though. Like, I loved... This was such a unique mentality Katakuri had as an antagonist. I really liked that Oda threw something like this in.
Dude, even for like that aspect of him for sure, and then also like I think Luffy needed like because Luffy versus Doflamingo was Gear 4th was cool and everything like that, but it was a shorter fight compared to like it wasn't like Luffy versus Luffy. Like it felt like we hadn't had a very long Luffy fight for a long time, and then Oda was finally like, okay, this is the one that's gonna take a bit and really push him basically. So I mean, I was happy that we got that.
No, 100%. And it was also, I guess, refreshing because Doflamingo was like, don't get me wrong, I think he was an amazing villain. But he was like a real villain, right? He was like the bad guy, like basically Crocodile, but like notched up a little bit, controlling Dressrosa, and like having a lot of very interesting stuff, obviously, to his character and surrounding his storyline. But Katakuri never went into the position of the villain in the first place. Like it became very clear that this is not, he's not someone that's evil and that Luffy has to defeat. He's literally someone, like kind of quote unquote protecting his country from Luffy intruding.
Yeah, which was literally what it was.
And like it was like with Katakuri, like at the beginning he was very arrogant, of course, because he didn't believe Luffy was strong enough to face him. But you never had the feeling like this person is evil. It was just at the beginning he was like just badly annoyed by Luffy and all the chaos that they had created in his turf. And then it slowly turned into him actually starting to respect Luffy, and then this turning into like more of a trainings arc almost, and like pulling Katakuri to his side. So that was just I love the way in general, like his character and the way Oda incorporated him as an antagonist into the story was something we, at least you correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel we haven't had in that way or form before in the story.
I agree. We hadn't had an antagonist who was literally like
not evil, but like someone who was fulfilling their duty, kind of, and had to be taken down, and then had this development over the course of the fight. Well, like Doflamingo was literally, he was a great villain, but it was a concept that we were already familiar with, kind of,
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that maybe made people even like where you fall on Luffy versus Katakuri. Like I really like that fight. For me, it's my second favorite fight in the series. I still like Luffy versus Lucci more because of the context around it, and what Luffy beating Lucci ultimately meant. And I kind of liked, that kind of plays into that, right? Like a lot of it comes down to like how satisfying it feels when Luffy's like finally like just beating the hell out of like Jet Gatling, for example, or whatever. Just like finally taking down someone who you really dislike and who Luffy really hates basically by the end of it. So we never had that with Katakuri. It was pure respect by the end of the fight. So even just having the fight end with two characters hitting each other at the same time, like, yeah, it wasn't a thing where Luffy just had like concluded the fight by finally just like giving Katakuri like a terrible beatdown. Like it was more so like last man standing after like continually like trading blows for a period of time. So I think some people weren't happy that it ended the way it did, like where it with like two hits clashing and then like getting up and then talking to each other and then Katakuri falling down. But I think it fit that fight very well, even if it's not like a Luffy versus Crocodile type finish or Luffy versus Lucci type finish, where it's like a lot of pent up hate and like it's very cathartic seeing this villain like finally go down. Because this was like the most respectful way that we could have seen like Katakuri get his own and Luffy get his own, basically.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And I feel what maybe the Lucci fight and the Katakuri fight might have in common, in my opinion, is that both of them are probably the most intimate fights we get in the entire story, right? We have Luffy and an antagonist who've either already created or in Katakuri's case start creating a real relationship in that room that they're fighting together in. While I think with most other villains or enemies that Luffy had to take on, I feel like there's always been other people. Like Doflamingo, of course, was in general. Like this was like in the open, there was law around, people were around. Crocodile as well, like there was like multiple steps and then there were always like someone there to like witness this fight. I can't think of anyone else than Luffy and Katakuri where the two were actually separated from everyone else in this space. And it like Oda makes it a point when someone intrudes into that fight with Katakuri and Luffy with
to get the hell out of the way.
Flampe coming in. Yeah, like actually like we feel annoyed and even Katakuri feels annoyed by that. I feel like it's this relationship, this closeness, this intimacy in this fighting scene that makes both of them so special in a way.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the crocodile fight in a way, like the third round of it, I'd say gets close to that sort of feeling. But it's still a little different because Crocodile was, I guess if you're using the word intimate, it wasn't as much so because Crocodile was generally annoyed with Luffy throughout that fight, if you know what I mean. Whereas the two examples you said, Luffy versus Lucci, Luffy versus Katakuri, and those two being the very isolated fights, those were the ones where there was the most mutual respect between, like Lucci did, like show signs of respect for Luffy throughout that fight. In fact, like he was like mocking him and stuff like that at times, but it was more so like they wanted this fight to go on, and they were both like those were the two times that they were like basically like boxers going at it for like a long period of time.
Right, and both were enjoying it to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe Luffy's not enjoying it, but like they're both taking the fight very like with a lot of pride or something along those lines on the line. Whereas like Luffy versus Crocodile was pissed from start to finish that Luffy kept on getting back up or whatever. So
no, for sure. Same with like Enel or Arlong. Like those were all fights like they had to face Luffy just because Luffy forced it on them, kind of. But Katakuri and Lucci, they actually like they were prepared to fight Luffy. Like they engaged actually, right? So yeah, like those are definitely the two most memorable fights for sure. So I'm the more excited, to see how the big fights, like now that the end game is slowly starting with Kaido, Big Mom, and so on and so forth. I'm curious how those fights will actually turn out.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are going to be a ways away personally. So I think that by the time we get to those, like it'll have been long enough that we're wanting again like another really long, because I don't think that you can do like Luffy versus Katakuri or Luffy versus Lucci fights frequently. You know, like I mean, obviously, I guess otherwise it loses a bit of its uniqueness or its freshness. Basically, like it gets a little tiresome. So I think it was right. You know, it took us so long to get another Luffy versus Lucci style fight, but I think it was right that Oda waited that long. Even not doing that with Doflamingo, I think that was fine. Like I think waiting till Katakuri was fine. But then I think since doing that, I think it is going to have to be a little bit again before Luffy has a really like a fight that's that intense. So I think waiting till the end of the arc, assuming that this is not the final battle, for that to happen with Big Mom and Kaido and such. And even with those fights, I assume that like they're going to have very different feels.
I mean, like, now that you mention it, I would probably say that the next fight that's probably going to be a real intimate one is probably only going to be Blackbeard, in my opinion. Now that you phrase it that way.
No, okay, I could see that. I could see that because Luffy versus Kaido, Luffy versus Big Mom, I assume for at least one of those fights, very likely for both, there's going to be a crowd. There's going to be like a lot of other people possibly helping, you know, stuff like that. So it's not going to be. I guess there'll be some space before the next like Luffy's Katakuri type fight.
No, I agree. And as you said, I do believe that it's probably a smart thing to space these out a little bit. Okay, I think now we have postponed it long enough. Let's talk a bit about the Flying Six.
Yeah, let's do that quick, and then let's get to the questions.
Let's get to the questions. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts in general of the Flying Six? Were you positively surprised? I hope.
Let me think. Okay, hold on. Pulling up again. I like the designs overall for sure. This was a point where again I was just really not happy with the translations. It's hard to explain. Like sometimes I'm just okay with it, like what the translations are as they are now. Like if it doesn't feel like if I feel like I'm understanding everything and following everything, like, I'm fine when it feels like simple or crude dialogue, but it's still clear what's being said. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like here, where it just gets messy and all, like it's clearly a little, at least for me, it was like a little hard to make out exactly who's addressing who. Some of the jokes don't seem to fit that well and stuff like that. Like, because I can tell that they're having some sort of like jabs and jibes at each other and stuff like that, and it's not being exactly clear who's addressing what and stuff. This was a point where I was just like, that I'm annoyed at these people who do these translations, because I've made this clear before. I don't appreciate the fact that they put out these translations early, because if they didn't exist and they didn't put out the translations early, then we would all just be reading it unofficial, right? Like that's just what would be happening. So, and we'd be waiting the same amount of time between each chapter. Everyone would be waiting a week, so it doesn't actually change anything. It's just the fact that like they're getting out this really rushed product that they know that we're all gonna we're gonna take it because we can't wait and stuff like that. But it's not good for anybody. Like it would make, if they didn't exist and they didn't put up the chapters, it doesn't affect anyone. Like everybody's still waiting a week. We all just bump to Sunday basically, and then we're all on the same page.
I think the issue right now at the moment and with this is that there's different groups putting out different translations.
Okay.
So, for example, the last 2 chapters, if I remember correctly, I was very, very happy with the scan translation because they were really high quality, and I was feeling, it almost felt like, the spot that was left by the previous sites was almost being filled up.
I agree actually, and that's what I was saying. Like, I felt like I had gotten used to it or whatever, and then this was the first time that I've had a significant complaint. I personally feel that like anytime it gets to something that's going to be like a little more complicated, like it seems like because like the Flying Six, they're speaking to each other, but a lot of it's like off panel and it's not inherently clear who's addressing who. Like I think this is the point where it becomes more tricky, and this is the point where like the poor translations really shows, at least to me. And this is when I get annoyed that we don't have good translations.
Yeah. No, I do agree. And I, like I said, yeah, I do feel it depends. It kind of feels at the moment that there are several groups,
Okay. I guess I'm not keeping up with it as much. I just open it up when I do, and then I see, it's like this but sucks.
Like the feeling I get is that there are several groups competing. Like, okay, this is literally based on no inside knowledge I have, but it like just from the translation, it feels like there are different groups out there, and it kind of feels like whoever gets it out first gets the most attention. And so I feel the last 2 weeks we got a better version of that was actually really close, if not better, to the official, or at least similar to what we got from Jimini's box. And now this week, and I think it was like 3 chapters ago, the first translation that dropped was pretty horrific to follow, where it was like, okay, yeah, like you said, oh, this makes sense, but like in some crucial moments you'd like to know what's actually going on.
Okay, so I agree. You are right that the translation is actually, I just read, I went to the One Piece Reddit, opened up the link again to see, and it seems like it's been replaced with like a new group's translation, and now I'm rereading the conversation, and it's a lot better. Now I can actually follow everything that's being said. So I guess I'm being overly harsh. Whatever the first translation is up, it's terrible. It's like really, really, really bad. Whoever put up the most recent version, it seems a lot better. So sorry to whatever. Let me see. Let me get credit. How do I know whose this is?
Just
Does it
scroll
say
down
somewhere?
to the bottom, I guess.
Scroll to the bottom.
OG scan.
OG scan. Okay. I like your guys' translation a lot better than whoever did the first one. Zero respect to the first prequel. Seriously.
Who did the first one? Wait. Oh damn. You want to scroll all the way down? Oh no.
Why? What happened?
Check it out.
I'm seeing OG scan.
Is that the same one? No, that's not the same one though, is it? No, this is 2 times the same in translation, isn't it?
This is what?
Isn't this just 2 times the same translation?
No, because this one has clearly different dialogues. So if the queen were to suddenly die, who would be the next all-star in your opinion? I know it didn't say that the previous time.
Maybe it's the same group and they just refine it. I don't know.
And then just. Oh my god, that makes me more mad then.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna say it here. No, but yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it. Yeah, there's definitely different. He called us rascals before it was jokesters. OG-san before it was grandpa. Okay.
But yeah, no, the new version is definitely way better. 100% agreed. Yeah, and I'm very excited to read the official on this one. 100%.
Sorry, we got way off topic. What was I thinking about the Flying Six? Or what do we think about the Flying Six? That's the main thing. So that was it to start with. Initially, I was confused. I understood generally that they're throwing jabs at each other and they're talking about like who's going to take the spot of queen and stuff like that. But I couldn't clearly follow the dialogue, so I wasn't really getting whose personality is whose. Through the initial translation, I wasn't even sure who was what dialogue was being directed towards different people, so I couldn't really tell the dynamics as clearly. So I'll just talk about the designs.
Yes, please.
So and personalities, I guess we'll get into. We'll know better after the Viz translation comes out or whatever, and dynamics. So design-wise, I really like looking at it again. Drake's obviously really cool. I personally like who's who. I actually really like that design. I know I've seen some people say it's generic. Page 1 had a pretty cool redesign that actually seems to shift my opinion of his character. Like I don't get it. It seems more like almost like a cutesy little hat that he's got.
He's like a teenager, kind of like this teenager, kind of like I don't know, like he looks like it reminds me kind of like a male Japanese idol, kind of like he looks like he's in a band or something.
Dude, it doesn't fit at all with the initial like perception of him or whatever. Like, you know what? It's kind of like Jack, I guess. Like Jack, when you see him the first time and he's more so on his own, he's a very intimidating, terrifying dude, etc. But then once he's grouped together with his stronger, fellow calamities and such like that, then he seems like the kid of the group or like the
100%.
the whipping boy of the group or whatever. So I don't know, like page 1 at least I got that same kind of vibe here, like first time we saw him, so I like who's who design a lot. Drake obviously good. Sasaki cool.
I think he's really cool actually. I see him, like I've seen him getting a lot of hate for some reason.
Oh, Sasaki?
Or not hate, but like people saying that he's the least interesting. I think he looks pretty badass.
You're talking about Sasaki or Who's Who?
Yeah, Sasaki.
Okay, I've seen hate for Who's Who. So I don't know why. Really? I think Who's Who's design is pretty cool.
I think I like both. I literally like all of them kind of. I mean, to be fair, like Ulti, I think she's interesting. Her design almost, it's almost got something like, it almost has this Bleach vibe.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I could totally see like a Arankar type.
Like the Espadas or something?
Yeah. I could totally see one of the Arankar, the Espada, having one like this sort of design.
Right, so there. And then I actually looked up Sasaki, because I was like, oh, maybe like, because, with a lot of the things that get revealed later.
Yeah.
So it's actually like Oda is usually not very... It feels like Oda's very secretive about his reveals, and then it's like, oh, that's actually what was going on. But often, like, a lot of stuff is actually hidden in his naming. So I was just looking stuff up, and I looked it up, and like the first thing that came was like Sasaki as like a purple, like giant purple butterfly. So I thought like, okay.
I don't know how that fits though. Like he's not gonna have a butterfly fruit, do you think?
I mean, it like when you look at his horns, I do feel they might be antennas, kind of. You know, he looked,
Oh, that is interesting. And that the other thing
and
is
then the
like,
patterns, you know, he has on him.
yeah, they all do have. Okay, I could actually totally see that's it feels so weird for the type of character he seems like. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I could totally
yeah,
see like a butterfly transformation for whatever reason.
that would be
Um,
dope.
they all have horns, which is something else that people pointed out.
Except extra,
Yeah, except X Drake.
which is not suspicious.
No, wait, dude, did Page One have horns the first time we saw him, or is that just his hat?
I think we only saw him in his dinosaur form, so I'm actually not sure.
No, we saw him in his hybrid, right? Like he shrunk down.
All right, but I think he wasn't wearing his hat, was he? He just had his hair down. I don't think
Okay,
he had horns.
okay, so they don't organically have horns, all of them, I guess.
I think not all of them. Like that's in general like the interesting question. I feel like how many of them have the horns as an outfit, and how many actually have the horns. With Kaido's crew in general, I feel like that's a really interesting question.
Because who's who, for example, like if Page One's horns aren't legit, then who's horns could
No.
easily be his hat. Whereas someone like Ulti, it seems like is actually, that.
Yeah.
Black Maria, by the way, her design is cool. It's just that I feel like I've seen it a little. It reminds me of Charlie, I guess.
Oh really? For me, it was more Shirahoshi kind of.
Oh, you know what? Okay, but okay, maybe I said Charlie because I remember Charlie is holding one of those.
The pipes.
That,
Yeah, it's like a
what
mix between the two almost.
Yeah, wait, dude, is she a fishman? I can't actually tell.
It's hard to say. Like I've seen people speculate that she's a giant, but I feel like she's too small for a giant.
Yeah, she's not a. She's just a large human. She's not a giant.
Yeah. So if she were to be a mermaid, that would actually be interesting. I feel.
Yeah, I can't tell where they're at. Like, are they? See, it's hard. It's just hard to tell. Basically, like, are they on a raised platform? Are they next to water? What's the deal, basically? So,
Yeah. No.
Black Maria, I guess we're gonna find out. But the thing is, if she's a fishman or a mermaid or whatever, she shouldn't be able to have a fruit, right? Wouldn't be able to swim.
Well, but like, isn't that the theory for Jack, that he's actually a fisherman but can't swim because he has a devil fruit?
He is a yeah. I think that is confirmed and stuff like that. But okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess the fact that she seems like she could be in water right now or something like that, but I guess she's not. I don't know.
I think, well, for at least for a devil fruit, I feel like she might be, of course, like leaving out X-Drake and Page One, who we already have seen. But I feel Black Maria is like pretty obvious what her fruit's gonna be like, except if Oda wants to throw a complete curveball with this one.
I have no idea. Wait, what's her fruit gonna be like?
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking of like a Black Widow, just like,
Oh, really?
yeah, no? Oh, just
Well,
me?
okay. The only reason. Okay, no. The only reason I say that. Okay, same with the butterfly thing is because we haven't seen insect zones, have we? So that's the reason.
No,
that,
we
like,
have. No, I'm
Wait,
pretty
what?
sure we have. Didn't like the Tontara have the insect devil fruits?
Wait,
Like this beetle guy they were flying on, that Leo was flying on?
he had the. Oh shoot. Okay, hold on.
I'm pretty
Hold
sure
on.
there were like 2 or 3.
You know what? I'm gonna take your word
insect
for it
devil
then,
fruits.
because that seems right.
Wait, let me
Uh,
check that. How do I Google this? Tontara devil fruit?
Yeah, wait.
I'm not-
Yeah, are there? Wait. One Piece insect zones. Just gonna look that up.
Oh, that might be good. Wait.
That's why
I'm sure
I was just surprised even when you're suggesting butterflies. Like, I guess yeah, that could work.
Wait. No, but I'm pretty sure I remember that. Yeah. There's this guy. So what is his name? Kabu, and he has like a Kabuto zone devil fruit.
Okay, so that's completely changed my view of of devil fruit possibilities.
Wait,
then.
I'm
How come I haven't
quickly
seen
gonna-
that many insect zones then.
I'm quickly gonna share my screen so you can see it. Here. So, oh, wait. Share this screen. Okay. Here, this guy, right? So he has like this Kabuto devil fruit, right?
Yeah, shit. Okay, so that is officially a thing. That's interesting. That actually opens up so many possibilities that I hadn't thought of before. I totally forgot. Totally forgot that they had
This-
insect devil fruit.
This image is so cursed.
Yeah.
so what we're looking at is basically someone illustrated Sanji and Zoro as Tontaras.
and they look really
It looks kind of creepy.
they look really creepy.
But yeah. So there. So I think that's official.
Okay, so insect zones definitely a thing. That's cool.
And then of course there's isn't there this marine guy that was in Ennis Lobby also with the many arms? Doesn't he have a spider fruit or something?
Oh, Onigumo. Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like it's a spider fruit. Okay, so definitely
Possible.
high possibilities. Okay, I guess you know what? I was just thinking that basically like they are gonna have. Now that I think about it, I just assumed that they're gonna have like ancient zone teams all around. But I guess that's not the case.
I mean, it's a possibility also.
It's
I
still
just
a possibility,
feel
right? Because X-Ray can taste one, but it could be repetitive in a sense.
yeah,
Then I guess
it would also be a bit lame. I feel just having like I mean, like don't get me wrong. I feel dinosaurs are cool, and like having dinosaur zone types, like ancient zone types, is also cool. But I don't need 6 of them.
Yeah,
Same
6 plus all of the calamities are zoned. We got King, Pterodactyl, Queen, the Brachiosaurus.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, and then Jack the Mammoth. That is one area that I'll still say I'm a little disappointed on, that the calamities themselves didn't have mythical zones, because mythical zones are inherently more interesting than ancient zones. Because ancient zones, you always know what you're getting, like a stats buff, and you assume it's more of a stats buff than like a normal zone and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's
with the mythical, you always get like the extra power, kind of the paramecia.
Yeah, like paramecia plus the stats. Yeah, so it's just inherently cooler. And like for a group that's entirely zone based, I think this was the one group that you would really expect is stacked with at least 1 or 2 more mythical zones or something like that. So I don't know.
Right. Well, maybe Oda is trying to make it a point of how rare they actually are.
That he's doing it very well.
Yeah, I mean for sure. But I mean, in this arc, who do we have? We have Kaido and we have Orochi. Is there anyone else with the mythical zone? I don't think so, right?
Again, though, that's why I still feel like Orochi definitely has the potential to be. It's. I don't know how Oda's hiding it, but Orochi could be hiding it.
He's also hiding it really well.
Yeah, remarkably well. But I feel like Orochi, him being strong in some way, or revealing that somehow, or something like there's something behind it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That could totally.
No, I do.
Because it's a mythical zone, right? Like it's so rare if it's going to this.
I do feel that as well. Let's maybe move on to
I think
some questions then. Let's see what we got. If you guys came up with something that we can talk about. Let's see. Do you want to choose first or just go whoever finds something interesting first?
1 sec. I'm still pulling it up. Okay.
Pulling it up.
Okay. So first question. I can just go real quick and then you can go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is the raid on Onigashima going to play out more like Ennis Lobby than Marineford? Actually, maybe that's not even a good question if we've talked about this. So I guess, regardless of whether or not it ends in failure or success, we can talk about, like, what's the feel going to be like, and I think we're both feeling like it's going to be a little more like Ennis Lobby, I guess, now?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, basically based on... And I based that completely on the geographical layout of Onigashima right now. Like, if Onigashima had been this, like, vast battlefield, I would have said this is like clearly a marine fort. But now that we got like this town, like kind of clustered, kind of ambient with all those buildings and corners, I do feel that this is more an Ennis Lobby kind of feeling.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, it doesn't mean though that later on in the arc, like if the fight should at some point, be shifted to the outside, to the harbor or something, that might still turn into a more Marineford kind of feeling, I guess.
I think that makes sense, especially if it's like, if they've got retreat is really hard now, because they've destroyed the ships. They destroyed the ships. I don't know. Dude, that's one of the things that makes me... Which was a pretty
cool move, though.
It was a cool... Actually, really, we didn't talk about that. I really like that moment.
Yeah.
Got some respect back for Kinemon that I'd lost over the last couple of chapters. He's a good leader. It's just... He's not a brilliant man, is what I'm picking up, basically. But he is a good leader.
No, yeah. He got some wins in this chapter for sure.
Yeah, I actually really like that moment. I think it could have been like slightly more clear that it was the people themselves destroying the ships. Because initially, for the first moment, and maybe it was the translation as well, it was like, wait, something is destroying the ships? Like,
Yeah. I do think that was on purpose, though.
Yeah.
I would say that was on purpose. I think Oda, I think Chopper also is like, oh no, shit, what's happening? The ships are sinking.
You're right.
So I do believe that is on purpose.
And overall, I like that moment. I think that's like an under the radar, really cool moment for Kinemon. But that also makes me question again.
Oh yeah.
So if it does end in failure, how the hell are they going to get out? Like, so maybe it is the final battle. I still don't think it's the final battle, but I can totally see why. And Oda's kind of trying to frame it as though like there's no way out. So they have to do it right now, basically.
I got another interesting question here. In that regard, Dimension Zone asks, is Morj already happy that his theory is about to become true?
Yeah, dude, I felt it very strongly this chapter, at least, that just looks like that. Just seems like that way to me. Like, the geography, as you said, like that plays a big part, because it doesn't feel like it's set up for this being the final battle. Like, it just doesn't feel that way. I think fighting in Wano itself, in a very clear, open space where it just feels more like a war, would make a little more sense. So, I don't know. That's what I believe still. Can I answer a question real quick? This is one that I see, that I get like somewhat frequently, so I just want to...
No, then not. Then you can't. Sorry.
Okay, never mind. Let's do Alright, so Shubham asked, Morj always put a lot of stock in Luffy's statement, but he said that he'll save Ace. That didn't pan out. He said he'll go back to Whole Cake Island to beat Big Mom. So the Ace thing, that's the point. That's the exception that basically proves the rule. Like, that was the whole point of, like, up till that point in the series, whenever Luffy said, I will do this, I'll accomplish this, or whatever, it's kind of to prove, like, where there's a will, there's a way, or whatever. Like, it was to prove that, like, when Luffy really puts his mind to something, or he says he's going to do something, he always ends up following through. And then Ace was the time that it was, like, this was the moment that it matters the most, that it's most important that Luffy's able to do what he says he's going to do. And that was the first time that he really failed in a big way. So that's the important, like, the Ace thing, that was the point of it. The point was that Luffy, anytime he says something, he's able to follow through. Okay, this was the time he fell short, and then from here on out, he's got to get stronger to go back and to do that. So the Ace thing doesn't fall into that category, because that was the point of it. And then the Big Mom thing, he said that he'll go back. The main point with the Big Mom thing is that he's going to beat Big Mom one day. Right, so that was the main takeaway. Like, the Whole Cake Island aspect of it isn't important if Big Mom herself is moving around. Like, it's not like, oh, I need to be in Whole Cake Island, beat Big. Like, it's the same way, like, Luffy, because people have asked me this before, like, it's the same way Luffy said, oh, I'm going to beat Crocodile in the desert. When he gets to the castle, he's like, I'm going to beat Crocodile right here, right now. He doesn't do that. It ultimately takes him to the tomb before he's able to beat Crocodile. Like, the important part is the beating Crocodile. It's not like the location that he does it. So when he says he's going to beat Crocodile, ultimately he does that. Same with Big Mom. Like, he obviously said, I'll come back to beat you, because he didn't know that she's going to be chasing him. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, Luffy versus Big Mom, at least from what he said to Katakuri, what he said multiple times in Whole Cake Island, that event happening is pretty much set in stone. So, pretty much, yeah. That's the point of Luffy's character. Like, when he says that he's going to do X, when he puts his mind to it, he's going to accomplish that at the end of the day. Ace was the one exception, because that was the time he had to learn that he has to become stronger to be able to keep up with his declarations or whatever.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that, 100%. I like this question here. Is there a series or show or book or whatever that, in your opinion, can stand up to One Piece world building? I'm going to leave the first answer to you.
So the problem is that when I was younger, I used to read a lot of fantasy. From the fantasy stuff worlds that I read, last fantasy book that I read was the second Game of Thrones, second A Song of Ice and Fire books. Then I just dropped it because the show was going on, and I was like, I'm probably just gonna keep up with the show or whatever. But I've stopped reading as much as I grew older. Part of that's because of manga and anime. So I know that there's really big worlds that like Brandon Sanderson, for example, has created. Like I know that there's other worlds that are probably bigger in terms of world building. Like I've even heard in the manga community or whatever, or that Tower of God. Is Tower of God a manga? I forget what it is. I don't. It's like a webcomic.
I don't know. Might be a light novel. I don't know.
Okay,
I'm actually not familiar.
I've heard that has like comparable world building to One Piece or greater in some sense. So like I don't know for sure what worlds have. I'm certain that there's other series out there that maybe just for sheer length of time that they've been running or whatever surpass One Piece in world building. The one thing that I'll always say, oh, and I've got a world building video coming out in a bit that'll talk about what I think One Piece does exceptionally well in terms of world building, that maybe other series don't match, even if they have bigger worlds than it. But one thing that I really like about One Piece's world building is that it's not just coming up with lots of, like, it's one thing to create a fantasy world that has lots of locations and stuff like that. Like, if we use Lord of the Rings as an example, like Gondor, Rohan, and stuff like that's creating a lot of interesting locations and stuff. One Piece maybe might not go as in depth, like it's not creating its own languages and stuff, but the creativity that goes into a lot of these worlds that it creates, these locations that it creates, is crazy. Like Skypiea is a more fantastical world than you'll find like even a lot of these other big worlds, or like Water 7, or like any Slavi. Like the concepts behind a lot of these islands and stuff that's fitting into this world is really, really, really cool. So there's like a different, like an extra splash of creativity that I think goes into even just the size of One Piece's world, and that like every single island, even throwaway islands that we see, like Broccoli Island or like stuff like that. Like there's just like the Straw Hats were dropped on 9 locations, for example, in this time skip, and like each one was like a really cool concept for an island, or most of them were a cool concept for an island.
Nothing wrong with Broccoli Island though.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my thought on that, and then you can hear more thoughts on what I think of One Piece's world building and how it stacks up in like video that I'll put out soon. Anyway, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I guess from the quantitative argument, I feel like there's a ton of stories out there that have also, like you said, been long running, just have a lot of books. The Wheel of Time has enormous world building. Obviously, The Lord of the Rings, something I like to bring up, has enormous world building. I guess from a more qualitative aspect, I feel like a good example for world building that is not very intense or not very extensive, but nonetheless very successful, is Harry Potter. I know there's a lot of, there's always, it's a story that never was meant, or that was never anticipated to have the amount of fame it got. And so obviously there's a lot of stuff people are picking at. But the fact that it got so popular, especially with its world building, shows how good of a job J.K. Rowling did by actually never really showing us too much of the wizarding world, but literally like giving us the perspective of like school children at their school. And we only got like glimpses of the entire world out there by like small, corner plots and things here and then.
Like,
and I feel like
athletes,
that is
the Quidditch athletes and stuff that are popular.
stuff. So it's like, it's small stuff. It's really small elements where the focus is not on, spelling. Like I do appreciate, and I think Oda does this in a good way, actually showing us and exploring with us these locations. But I feel like J.K. Rowling is a great example, of Harry Potter, of how to do world building if you don't have the time or don't want to show everything, but actually leave some stuff to the imagination and just hint at certain things. And, and nonetheless be able to build like a universe. I know that J.K. Rowling has kind of broken with that tradition now that she's, revealing a lot of stuff on Twitter and stuff and so on and so forth. But in general, like inside the books, I feel this is an example of brilliant world building without actually going to all these places and explaining everything in detail.
I definitely think that's... like there's different strength, like when you say like what's better world building or whatever, what is better worlds, like that's a good way of explaining like how a better world or better world building can be. Like that can mean many different things, right? Like Harry Potter has really good world building without even showing us or taking us to many different parts of the world. So it makes sense. Okay, and one thing that I'll cite from like your last video about world building, which I think people should go and watch, to be honest, because that was really good, Um, like just the concept of One Piece's world is really really smart. Like how the actual world is set up in that it's four seas, Grand Line, and Red Line. Who lives on top of the Red Line and stuff like that? Like who are the people traveling the seas, pirates and stuff like the concept behind the world fits the plot, like the story of like the story is so specifically tied to how the structure of the world is, like in a way that I think that even places with really big worlds don't match. If that makes sense. Like the world dictates the story in a really important, and especially if you buy into that theory, like the big theory that like the One Piece itself is very possibly the connecting of all four seas and the destruction of the Red Line, or that's a big part of what the treasure is, basically, which would mean that, like, in that case, I think if that turns out to be the case, then I think that means One Piece have, like, one of the most brilliant world concepts, like, ever.
I mean, in general, that is something that is very essential, I feel, in world building overall, which is why a story like Lord of the Rings or so on and so forth was so successful, right? Because what Tolkien, for example, started off with is his languages and his story world, and then out of this world he created his characters that then naturally, of course, could act in this world. The same goes, for Oda's characters. He has this enormous world, and then he has characters that naturally belong and operate inside this world. They don't feel like, you take a character you like and you construct it and you throw it in a random stage, kind of, That would be the kind of the opposite of that. It's so I feel like there are countless examples for having stories that are maybe good, but they feel kind of off, or the story world isn't as interesting because you have like the focus is on the character, and the character maybe doesn't feel as natural in this world he's operating in, which is also one of the difficulties in writing fantasy compared to other stories, because obviously when you write about events in the real world, you do have the real world as a reference, and it automatically has a certain amount of organic or realistic elements in it. In fantasy, that's a lot harder, actually. Having your characters be a natural part of the world you create.
All right.
Let's see. Let's do one more question.
Sounds good.
Nice. I'm giving you the go to pick.
Shoot. Okay. Give me a second. That's too hard. Do you want to pick?
Okay, let me check. Let's see what we got. Oh, I think I saw an interesting question. Oh, here it is. So so I'm gonna rephrase that quickly. Do you think there is basically a human model Zone Devil Fruit for the different tribes, like the long-armed tribes, so that basically a giant could have, like, be a long-armed giant, kind of?
That's really interesting. I think that could totally exist. I mean, wasn't Kaido being an Oni, Kaido being a dragon who has an Oni fruit, a very popular theory for a bit?
Yeah.
Or I guess it's still...
I still like that.
Yeah,
actually.
It's still potentially the theory to go with. But besides that, like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's possible. And I do think it's an interesting concept. But do I think that we'll see it in the story? Probably not, I would say.
You know what? I agree that we wouldn't. I think just because it's not a very interesting... it's not an interesting sort of ability, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you introduce a character who's like, I'm a human, but I ate the long arm fruit, so like my fighting abilities, I have, long arms or something. That's not fundamentally different than Oda just introducing a character who is a long arm human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it would be the same as if, like, that. The only thing I'd say is a giant devil fruit. I guess that could fit. Like, if you're talking, like, if they meet a human character and it's like, oh, it's time to fight, they reveal that they can grow gigantic. Because they have the giant fruit. I guess that's an interesting... Like, that's pretty drastic.
That might actually be a concept that we'll see, because I feel that ties into the entire thing with Caesar and, like, his research into giantification and stuff like that, right? Like, that sounds like either, and I feel like the lore we got on that on Punk Hazard kind of leaves open whether it's kind of like, okay, there is no way so far of turning a human into a giant, and we're literally trying to find out a new way of doing this, but it might just as well be, oh, there is a devil fruit, you know, that allows humans to turn into giants, but we kind of like, similar with the Momo's dragon fruit, we're trying to create an artificial version out of that.
Yeah.
Also possible.
You know what? That does make sense. So I guess we could see if the giant fruit being because the giant fruit makes sense. I guess the whole concept makes sense that, oh, there could be one for each type. But I'll say that like long arm, long leg, even mink and stuff, even fishman. But I'll say at the very least, like, I think we're not gonna.
I mean, a mink zone type fruit.
It's just like, what's the point?
Yeah, it would be.
That's the thing. It's like, I think besides the giant type fruit, any other fruit that like turns you long armed or long legged or like switches you to a mink, it's kind of a shoulder shrug. Like, okay, so what? Like, how's this different? Like, if it turns you into a mink, how's that really different than just having the fruit for that, like the polar bear fruit or something like that, instead of the polar bear mink fruit? Like, I don't know. So I could see the concept, yeah, for giants specifically, but for the others, like, even if it's a thing that exists, I don't think Oda's gonna bother showing it because it's not really interesting.
No, I agree. So there, giant fruit I would like to see as well, but for the others, I don't know. Maybe oni fruit or something. That would be interesting. Something
Oni,
unique.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
Or like ors, an ors fruit.
Yeah, whatever the hell his species is. I do hope that's fleshed out, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, I guess that's a good point to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think you want to get some food, and I think I'm going to try to go running. Get out of your head a little bit. Like,
good.
move the body a little bit.
Yeah, two opposite goals. I'm going to eat.
Damn, I prefer yours. We can switch if you want.
No, I think we could.
Okay, well, as always, thanks so much for listening. Definitely share your thoughts and comments below. Let us know if you made it to the end of this podcast. Hashtag Wano Report, I don't know. Is there a better hashtag for that?
I don't know. Yeah. Hashtag I watched all the way to the end of the episode. I don't know.
Okay. Let's go with what? Yeah, let's go with that one. And yeah, as always, you can support the podcast either by leaving us a like, sharing the podcast around with your friends, commenting, giving us a nice review on your favorite podcast app, whatever. We're shamelessly plugging this. And otherwise, yeah, leave us your thoughts, ideas, wishes, whatever it is, in the comments below. We are. I'm actually like starting now that I have more time to focus on YouTube now. I will actually go more into the comment section for these podcasts, I guess, to discuss with you guys. So definitely, see you guys there. Maybe we'll see Morj there once or twice. I think I saw you last time.
I think I come randomly. I don't really know. I don't check every podcast, but sometimes I'll check. Also, if I said something controversial, like I know a few podcasts, I've said stuff that like I knew people wouldn't like that much. So then I go and check because I need to defend myself. I feel the need to defend myself a little bit. But then there's too many comments. I'm like, I can't respond to everyone.
I feel like that would be a pretty good slogan for your channel in general. I come randomly.
All right, that's
okay. Well, we hear you guys next time. It was a pleasure having you there. Bye-bye.
Bye.